I have this book we started reading. And healing meditations for healing trauma by Louanne Davis, PsyD, whatever that means. I don't know. Some kind of doctor. How can mindfulness help? We all know how. Imagine that post-traumatic stress is like wearing trauma glasses with lenses that color and distort how you view your life in the present. Practicing mindfulness is like removing the trauma glasses so that you can see things more clearly. As they really are right now. The brake lights that appear ahead of you on the highway no longer mean that you are going to crash and die. You can now see the brake lights as simply a sign that the car ahead is slowing down. I knew a Vietnam veteran who used to say, "Mindfulness is like seeing things with fresh eyes." He had become aware of how he was trapped in the PTS cycle of turning emotional pain into suffering. With mindfulness, he came to know that in order to heal, he needed to see clearly how his emotional pain turned into suffering. This quality of awareness also reawakened his ability to notice life's precious gifts, such as moments of peace, joy, and beauty amid the stretches of emotional pain. What mindfulness is. Being mindful is being attentive. You aim your attention on purpose and observe your present experience in a particular way with an impartial, friendly, and curious attitude. When you are mindful, you are aware of where your attention is moment to moment. Therefore, you are also aware of when you are not paying attention. In this way, mindfulness helps you stay connected with what you are experiencing in your body, heart, and mind right now. Now let's take a look at how mindfulness can help you in the present moment with judgment, control, and compassion. Mindfulness and judgment. Our human brains are hardwired to quickly sort and label what we experience. These split-second judgments to move toward what seems to be safe, pleasant, and away from what seems to be unsafe or unpleasant are vital to survival. This is true whether we are in nature's jungle, on the highway, or on the battlefield. Also, in the modern jungle, we quickly evaluate whether or not we are safe physically and emotionally with the people we come in contact with. Judging helps us to not waste time paying attention to needless detail. However, because we make quick judgments, we are prone to make mistakes. Errors are even more likely when we see the world through trauma glasses. We may see a threat directed toward us personally when there is no threat. When we are mindful, we aim to notice these judgments as they happen. To wisely and skillfully navigate daily life, especially after trauma, it is quite useful to notice and set aside judgments that can fuel suffering. In doing so, we can take in our experiences more fully and objectively. As much as possible, we aim to view all experiences with an impartial or neutral attitude. This is one way to keep our rational mind working when our emotional mind would otherwise shut it down. Here's an example. It shows how incorrectly judging someone's behavior to be a threat and reacting instead of responding can keep the cycle of post-traumatic stress going. A soldier named Jim came home from Afghanistan and was struggling with PTS. One day, Jim who was still on active duty with the Army, was in uniform when he met some civilian friends for lunch. Several times during the meal, Jim noticed a man at a nearby table looking at him. He assumed the man had a negative view of him because he was in the military. Jim became consumed with anger. He thought about how unfair this was and that he should do something about it. He was so distracted that he could not pay attention to his food or the conversation with his friends, much less enjoy himself. Imagine Jim's surprise when their waiter told Jim and his friends that the man at the nearby table paid for their lunch in gratitude for Jim's service. How differently Jim's meal would have gone if he had been able to remind himself that trauma glasses can trick him into seeing threat when there is no threat. He could have mindfully stepped back from the PTS symptom of feeling threatened and ready for danger. He could have mindfully considered other possible explanations, such as curiosity or admiration, for the man's behavior. He could have checked out his perceptions with his friends, or he could have mindfully chalked up his anger to his overactive stress response. Then he could have let his anger play itself out instead of feeding it with more angry thoughts. He might have mindfully chosen to refocus his attention on what was most important to him right then, his meal and his friends. Mindfulness and control. Mindfulness involves becoming very curious about how things really are. When we are mindful, we can step back from our understandable wish to control, solve, fix, and/or change whatever is happening that we don't like. Instead of struggling to change things, we can allow things to be as they are. We can then observe our experiences just as we find them. Trying to control our experiences by avoiding what is unpleasant may lessen distress in the short run. However, we become trapped in a reaction habit. We strive to control everything. This does not serve our best interests in the long run. Our understandable desire for control sets in motion a pattern of avoidance that blocks recovery from trauma. Here's an example. It shows how using avoidance to try to control what can't be controlled keeps the cycle of PTS going. At her gym, Sally sometimes noticed the smell of stale sweat. It reminded her of the smell of the man who had raped her, and she felt fearful. Sally would quickly react by leaving the gym. This false alarm triggered the flight response in her emotional mind. It also shut down her rational mind, so she was not able to think things through. Her body, heart, and mind would calm down by the time she got home. So she naturally came to believe that the best way to handle this situation and feel safe again was to leave the gym whenever she became frightened. The more Sally tried to control her fear by leaving the gym, the worse her fear became. And the worse her fear became, the longer it took her to calm down. Before long, she started to believe that she couldn't handle going to the gym anymore. When I met Sally, she had completely stopped going to the gym. She was disconnected from the life she wanted to live. Her world and her life would have become smaller and smaller if she had continued to avoid the gym. Instead, Sally used mindfulness to help her stay engaged with her distressing fear-related body sensations, emotions, and thoughts as they arose. She noticed that it was impossible for her distress to continue when it was not being fed by her struggle to get rid of it. When she stopped trying to control her feelings by avoiding them, she gained a sense of self-control in the present and was less controlled by the trauma in the past. Mindfulness and compassion. Mindfulness meditation can at times be stressful because you are learning to face your life experiences. But like Sally, you can learn to face them instead of turning away from them. It can be stressful to be aware of how active your mind is when you desperately want peace of mind. It can be stressful to notice how tense your body feels. When you wish you could relax, or when you believe you should be more relaxed. And it can be very painful to judge yourself harshly for not being able to control these things. Things that are actually impossible to control. This book will help you learn to practice mindfulness by teaching you two skills: awareness and compassion. These skills are like wings. Just as a bird or an airplane needs two wings to fly, you need these two skills, awareness and compassion, to help you travel on your journey to recovery. I described mindfulness earlier as steady, open, and kind awareness. In order to take in our moment-to-moment experience with kind awareness, we must cultivate self-compassion. Dr. Kristen Neff, 2003, defines self-compassion as an attitude of kindness toward ourselves, especially when suffering from painful experiences such as trauma. An important part of self-compassion is the understanding that life's hardships and emotional pain are part of being human. They are not personal failure. Instead of being harshly self-critical we extend understanding and comfort to ourselves. Another important part of self-compassion is accepting that all human beings are in the same boat. None of us is perfect, and we all wish to be happy. If you are struggling with PTS, self-compassion may be particularly important. If you tend to harshly criticize yourself, your self-criticism may contribute to avoiding potentially painful memories, thoughts, emotions, and body sensations. But self-compassion can help change that. One research study looked at avoidance symptoms and self-compassion. The study results suggested that people who have more self-compassion might be less inclined to avoid trauma reminders or triggers as a way to cope with PTS symptoms. Self-compassion may smooth the path of recovery from PTS, Thompson and Waltz, 2008. Another study suggested that those who have PTS and the support of others had less severe PTS symptoms. This benefit was linked to increased self-compassion that may have been cultivated through the support of others. Unfortunately, people who have PTS often avoid people, places, and things that remind them of the trauma. This is their main way to cope with the symptoms. Therefore, they may avoid relationships with others, even family members. By doing this, they may be robbing themselves of an important way to both develop self-compassion and reduce PTS symptoms. I will describe awareness and self-compassion in more detail in the chapters to follow. However, actually practicing the meditations in this book will be a much more powerful way to learn about awareness and self-compassion than just reading about them.